We can't let them surround us. Stay close, watch your flank.
The morning sun filtered through broken windows, casting fragmented light across the hospital corridor. Emma Cross moved quietly through the ruins, her boots careful on debris-scattered floors. 3 years had passed since the virus transformed civilization into a graveyard. 3 years since she had watched her world die from behind these same walls. The Riverside Medical Center had become her fortress and her prison. Once, these halls had echoed with urgent voices and the steady beep of monitors. Now only silence remained, broken occasionally by the distant moans of the infected who wandered the city streets below. Emma paused at a window, observing the world outside. Vehicles sat abandoned on streets choked with weeds. Buildings wore nature's slow embrace, vines crawling up concrete faces like searching fingers. In the distance, a cluster of zombies shuffled aimlessly through what had been a shopping plaza. She had been a trauma nurse before everything collapsed. Her training had prepared her for medical emergencies, not the end of humanity. Yet somehow, those skills had kept her breathing when so many others had fallen. Her refuge occupied the hospital's 3rd floor, chosen strategically. Low enough to escape if needed, high enough that zombies rarely climbed. She had fortified the stairwell entrances with furniture and metal shelving. Her living space consisted of a former patient room, now filled with salvaged supplies and makeshift furniture. Water came from a rain collection system she had rigged on the roof. Food was harder. Emma ventured out weekly, moving through predetermined routes to scavenge from nearby stores and homes. Each expedition was calculated risk. Every decision weighed against potential danger. Today's
We can't let them
patrol
surround
took her
us.
to the
Stay close,
pediatric
watch your
wing,
flank.
where she maintained a small garden in the sunlit therapy room. Tomato plants grew in salvaged pots, their leaves bright against the decay surrounding them. She tended them carefully, knowing that these living things represented more than sustenance. They were proof that growth remained possible, even here. A sound stopped her cold. Not the shuffling gait of zombies, but something else. A rhythmic scraping, purposeful and controlled. Emma's hand moved to the knife at her belt. She had learned to trust her instincts. Survival demanded constant vigilance. The sound came from the emergency department below. Emma descended the stairwell slowly, her breathing controlled. Through a cracked door, she saw movement. A man struggled through the entrance, dragging one leg behind him. Blood stained his pants, and he clutched his side with trembling hands. He was alive, uninfected, and badly hurt. Emma watched for several heartbeats, assessing. Survivors could be as dangerous as the infected. Desperation made people unpredictable. But medical training overrode caution. She recognized the signs of serious blood loss. "Don't move suddenly," she called out, her voice cutting through the silence. The man's head jerked toward her voice. He was young, perhaps mid-20s, with dark hair matted by sweat. His eyes held pain, but also hope. "Please," he gasped. "They're coming. The Reavers. They took our camp. I barely escaped." Emma's mind processed this information quickly. She had heard rumors of the Reavers, a group of survivors who had turned predatory, stealing supplies and terrorizing other refugees. She had never encountered them directly, preferring isolation to the risks of human contact. "Can you climb stairs?" she asked, already moving toward him. "I'll manage." She supported his weight as they ascended to her floor. His leg wound was deep but clean, likely from a blade rather than infection. She worked quickly once they reached her medical supply cache, cleaning and stitching the gash while he gritted his teeth against the pain. "I'm Jacob," he said when she finished. "There were 8 of us at the warehouse on 5th Street. The Reavers came at dawn. They killed 3 people before we could even react. Emma's hands stilled. How many Reavers? At least 15. They're organized, well-armed, and they're moving through the district systematically. This changed everything. Emma had survived by staying invisible, by avoiding both the infected and other survivors. If a hostile group was sweeping the area, her sanctuary was compromised. She moved to the window, scanning the streets with new awareness. Nothing appeared different, but that meant little. Trained eyes could hide in plain sight. "You need to leave," Jacob said quietly. "They'll find this place eventually. They're looking for resources, and a functional hospital is exactly what they want." Emma knew he was right, though the knowledge settled in her stomach like stone. This building had sheltered her through the worst of the outbreak. Leaving meant abandoning the only security she
We
had
can't
known
let them
in
surround
years.
us. Stay
But
close, watch your
security
flank.
was an illusion. She had always known that, deep down. "I have a cache 2 miles north," she said, making the decision. "Medical supplies, weapons, preserved food. We'll move after dark." Jacob nodded, relief evident in his face. "Thank you." As daylight faded, Emma prepared for departure. She packed essentials into a sturdy backpack, selecting items with practiced efficiency. Antibiotics, surgical tools, water purification tablets, dried food. Each item was weighed against its utility. The photograph was last. Her family, taken 4 years ago at some forgotten celebration. Their faces smiled at her from another lifetime. Emma tucked it carefully into her jacket pocket. Night brought different dangers. The infected were more active after sunset, their movements unpredictable. But darkness also provided cover from human eyes. They descended through the hospital's rear exit, emerging into an alley choked with shadows. Emma led, her knife ready, her senses alert to every sound and movement. The city at night was a landscape of broken dreams. Moonlight painted everything in shades of gray. They moved between abandoned vehicles, through yards overgrown with wild grass, past homes that had once held ordinary lives. A zombie emerged from a doorway without warning. Emma reacted instantly, her blade finding its mark with practiced precision. The creature fell silently. Jacob watched with wide eyes. "You've done this before," he said. "Every day," Emma replied simply. They continued north, following Emma's memorized route. She knew this district intimately, knew which streets to avoid, which buildings offered cover, where the infected congregated. But as they crossed into what had been an industrial area, Emma saw lights in the distance. Not the random flicker of fire, but organized illumination. Flashlights moving in coordinated patterns. "The Reavers," Jacob whispered, fear sharp in his voice. Emma pulled him into the shadow of a loading dock. Through the darkness, she counted at least 10 figures moving through the streets ahead. They were searching buildings systematically, clearing each structure before moving to the next. Her cache lay directly in their path. Emma's mind raced through options. They couldn't go back. The Reavers would expand their search radius, and the hospital would eventually draw their attention. Going forward meant confrontation, unless there was another way. She studied the area with tactical precision, seeing not just buildings, but possibilities. An elevated walkway connected 2 warehouses ahead. If they could reach it without detection, they could bypass the Reavers entirely. "Follow exactly where I step," she told Jacob. "No sound." They moved like ghosts through the industrial maze. Emma led them through a series of calculated movements, using shadows and cover to remain invisible. Her heart pounded steadily, adrenaline sharpening her senses. They reached the walkway and climbed its rusted ladder carefully. Below, the Reavers continued their search, oblivious to the 2 figures passing overhead. On the far side, Emma led them to a nondescript warehouse. Its exterior appeared abandoned, which was precisely the point. Inside, hidden behind a false wall, was her emergency cache. As they secured themselves inside, Emma allowed herself a moment of relief. They had survived the night, but she knew this was only the beginning. The world had taken everything from her once. Now it demanded she fight for whatever remained, and Emma Cross was done running. Echoes of the Alien Part 2. The gathering storm. Rachel Torres had learned to listen to silence. The radio tower compound rose above, the industrial sector like a skeletal finger pointing at empty skies. From her position in the control room, Rachel could see miles of devastated cityscape spreading in all directions. She had claimed this place 8 months ago, drawn by its strategic value and the communications equipment still intact within its walls. Before the collapse, she had been a signals officer in the military, coordinating communications across vast networks. Now those skills served a different purpose. Every day, she broadcast on multiple frequencies, sending out calls to anyone who might be listening. Every day, she received only static in return, but Rachel refused to believe she was alone. The compound itself was defensible. Chain-link fencing surrounded the tower's base, reinforced with scavenged materials. She had cleared the infected from the immediate area and established a perimeter warning system using simple bells and tripwires. Solar panels on the roof kept her equipment powered, and a nearby water treatment facility provided relatively clean water. Her living quarters occupied the tower's second level, a former office converted into functional shelter. Maps covered one wall, marked with her exploration routes and areas of known zombie concentration. A weapons rack held her carefully maintained rifle and several backup firearms. Order and discipline had kept her alive. The radio crackled suddenly, breaking her morning routine. Not static this time. Voices. Rachel's hands moved to the controls instantly, fine-tuning the frequency. Through the interference, words emerged. Anyone out there? Injured man. Needs safe location. Heading north from Riverside. Please respond. Her heart accelerated. After months of silence, contact. Rachel keyed the microphone. This is Haven Station. I'm receiving your transmission. What's your location? A pause, then a woman's voice responded. We're approximately 2 miles south of the industrial district. Can you provide coordinates? Rachel gave precise directions to the compound, her mind already calculating. 2 people, 1 injured. They would be moving slowly, vulnerable. And if they were broadcasting openly, others might be listening too. Be advised, Rachel transmitted. Maintain radio silence from this point. I'll have the gate open. There are hostiles in this area. Understood. We'll be there within the hour. Rachel secured the radio and moved to prepare. She checked her rifle, loaded extra magazines, and positioned herself at a vantage point overlooking the compound entrance. Trust was dangerous, but isolation was slowly killing her. She needed allies, needed purpose beyond simple survival. 50 minutes later, 2 figures emerged from the ruins. A woman moved with calculated precision, supporting a limping man. Rachel observed them through her scope, noting the woman's awareness of her surroundings, the way she checked angles and cover points. Military training, perhaps, or hard-earned experience. Rachel descended to ground level and opened the gate manually. Inside, quickly, the woman helped her companion through the entrance. Up close, Rachel could see the exhaustion in both their faces, the weight of survival etched into their features. I'm Emma, the woman said. This is Jacob. Thank you for responding. Rachel Torres. Let's get him inside and secured before we talk. She led them to the tower's lower level, a space she had converted into a medical area. Emma immediately began examining Jacob's leg wound, her movements professional and confident. You have medical training, Rachel observed. Trauma nurse. Before everything ended, Emma glanced around the compound appreciatively. You've built something solid here. It's defensible, isolated, but isolation has its limits. Rachel paused, weighing her words. You mentioned hostiles. The Reavers? Emma's expression hardened. You know about them. I've intercepted their radio communications. They're organized, aggressive, and expanding their territory. They've been quiet for the past few days, which worries me more than their usual activity. Jacob spoke from his position on the medical cot. They destroyed our camp, killed people who tried to resist. Emma got me out. Rachel processed this information tactically. If they're consolidating power, they'll eventually target any independent survivors. We need more people, better defenses. Or we need to disappear, Emma countered. Find somewhere they won't look. A new voice interrupted from the doorway. They'll look everywhere eventually. Rachel spun, her hand moving to her sidearm. A young man stood in the entrance, hands raised in a peaceful gesture. He was thin, wearing glasses that seemed out of place in this ruined world, and carrying a worn backpack. How did you get in? Rachel demanded. The east fence has a gap near the generator housing. Sorry for the intrusion. I heard your radio transmission and followed them here. He gestured toward Emma and Jacob. I'm Thomas. I'm not armed, and I'm not with the Reavers. Rachel kept her weapon trained on him. Give me one reason not to throw you out. Because I know where there's a bunker. A real one. Government built, designed to survive exactly what happened. And I know how to get inside. The room fell silent. Emma studied Thomas with sharp eyes. Rachel maintained her defensive posture, but listened. Prove it, Rachel said. Thomas slowly lowered his backpack and withdrew a tablet computer. Its screen cracked but functional. I was an engineer for the city's infrastructure department. When the outbreak started, they activated emergency protocols. Most bunkers were compromised or overcrowded, but there's one beneath the financial district that was kept secret. I had the access codes and schematics. He activated the tablet, showing detailed blueprints of an underground facility. Rachel moved closer, her tactical mind immediately recognizing the value of such a location. How big? Emma asked. Designed for 200 people. Self-contained air filtration, water recycling, emergency power generators, and enough supplies to last years. The entrance is hidden beneath what used to be the federal building. If it's so perfect, why aren't you already there? Rachel's suspicion remained sharp. Thomas's expression clouded. I tried once, 6 months ago. The streets around the federal building are overrun. I couldn't get close alone. I've been searching for people who could help me reach it. Then I heard your transmission. Rachel exchanged glances with Emma. The nurse's expression showed cautious interest. It could be a trap, Emma said quietly. Or he could be mistaken about what's actually there. Or it could be exactly what he says. Rachel lowered her weapon slightly. We need better shelter. The Reavers are becoming bolder, and winter is coming. This compound won't sustain us through months of cold. Jacob sat up carefully. Even if the bunker exists, getting there means crossing through the most heavily infected part of the city. That's suicide. Not if we play it right, Thomas insisted. The subway tunnels run directly beneath the federal building. If we can access them from here, we can avoid most of the surface dangers. Rachel moved to her wall map, tracing potential routes. The nearest subway entrance is 3 blocks south. We'd need to clear it, secure the tunnel, and maintain a fallback position. That's a lot of variables, Emma said. Survival is nothing but variables. Rachel turned to face the group. But we can't do this with 4 people. We need more. Thomas spoke up. I've seen other survivors. Small groups hiding in the ruins. If we could reach them, convince them to join us. That takes time we might not have, Jacob pointed out. A distant sound cut through their discussion. Engines. Multiple vehicles moving through the streets. Rachel rushed to the window, peering through reinforced glass. A convoy of trucks rolled through the industrial sector, armed figures visible in the vehicle beds. The Reavers, moving with military precision. They're expanding faster than I thought, Rachel said grimly. Emma joined her at the window. They're heading toward the residential zones. There might be survivors there who don't know what's coming. Rachel's military instincts warred with survival pragmatism. Intervening meant risk, but allowing the Reavers to consolidate power unchallenged meant eventual confrontation anyway. We could warn them, Thomas suggested. Use the radio. Broadcasting our position to everyone, Jacob said, including the Reavers. Rachel made her decision. We broadcast once, short transmission. Give coordinates for a meeting point away from here. Anyone who responds, we evaluate. Anyone who seems like a threat, we disappear. She moved to the radio equipment, crafting a careful message in her mind. Emma positioned herself at the window, watching the Reaver convoy disappear into the distance. Rachel keyed the microphone, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Attention all survivors in the metropolitan area. Hostile forces are active and expanding territory. Safe meeting point at the old metro station, junction of 5th and Western. Dawn tomorrow. Come prepared to move. This transmission will not repeat. She shut down the equipment immediately after broadcasting. Now they would wait and see who answered the call. That night, they took turns on watch. Rachel found Emma standing guard at midnight, staring out at the city's dark expanse. You didn't have to stay, Rachel said quietly. You could have kept moving. Emma shook her head. I've been running for 3 years. Maybe it's time to stand somewhere. Standing means fighting. I know. Emma's voice carried quiet determination. But running means dying slowly. At least fighting gives us a chance. Rachel understood that sentiment perfectly. She had joined the military seeking purpose, seeking something larger than herself. The world had ended, but the need for purpose remained. As dawn approached, they prepared to move to the meeting point. Rachel packed essential supplies, checking weapons and ammunition carefully. Thomas secured his tablet and the bunker schematics. Jacob, still recovering, armed himself with determination despite his injury. Emma secured her medical kit. Her expression focused. They left the compound as sunlight broke across the horizon. 4 people bound by necessity and fragile hope. The metro station lay 2 miles distant, through streets haunted by both the dead and the desperate living. Rachel led them through careful routes, avoiding known zombie concentrations. They moved silently, communicating through hand signals she taught them quickly. The city around them stood as monument to humanity's fall, every empty building a tombstone. The metro station entrance appeared ahead, its escalators frozen in permanent descent. Rachel signaled a halt, scanning for threats. Movement near the entrance. Multiple figures emerging cautiously from hiding places. Rachel counted 7 survivors. A diverse group, young and old, armed with improvised weapons and desperate courage. They watched Rachel's group with equal caution. A woman stepped forward, older but steady. You're the one who broadcast? Rachel nodded. I am. The Reavers are expanding their territory. We're planning to move to a safer location. We need people who can fight, who can work together. The woman studied them carefully. Where's this safer location? Thomas spoke up. An underground bunker. Government-built, fully supplied. But reaching it requires getting through the most infected parts of the city. Murmurs rippled through the survivor group. Fear, hope, doubt mixing together. Why should we trust you? A younger man challenged. Emma answered. Because staying scattered means the Reavers will pick you off one by one. Together, we have a chance. Alone, we're already dead. The older woman nodded slowly. My name is Patricia. These people have survived this long by trusting my judgment. I say we listen to what you're proposing. Rachel outlined the plan. The subway tunnels. The bunker. The risks and the potential rewards. As she spoke, she saw hope kindle in tired eyes. But hope was fragile. And the journey ahead would test them all. Olivia Reed had spent her professional life understanding how cities worked. As an architect and urban planner, she had studied the bones beneath concrete skin, the arteries of infrastructure that kept civilization alive. Now those skills meant the difference between survival and death. She stood with the group at the subway entrance, studying Thomas's tablet with practiced eyes. The schematics showed a complex network of tunnels, maintenance shafts, and access points. To most people, it was a maze. To Olivia, it was a map written in a language she understood perfectly. This route won't work, she said, tracing a line on the screen. That tunnel section collapsed during the early earthquakes. We need to take the northern passage, then drop down through the utility access here. Rachel looked at her with renewed respect. You know the system? I helped design the expansion project 5 years ago. I know every tunnel, every junction, every emergency exit in this network. Olivia met Rachel's gaze steadily. And I know which routes are defensible. The group had swelled to 14 survivors. Along with Emma, Jacob, Rachel, and Thomas, they now included Patricia's 7 refugees and 2 others who had arrived separately. Among them was a former police officer named Vincent and a high school teacher called Michelle, who had kept 3 teenagers alive through sheer determination. Olivia had joined them yesterday, emerging from her shelter in an architectural firm's basement. She had survived alone for months, living off supplies and her intimate knowledge of the city's hidden spaces. But solitude had its limits, and Rachel's broadcast had offered something she desperately needed, purpose beyond mere existence. Now, as dawn light filtered weakly into the metro station, they prepared for the descent. Rachel organized them into units. Vincent and 2 others formed a forward scout team. Emma positioned herself in the middle with medical supplies. Olivia took point as navigator, with Thomas beside her comparing routes on his tablet. The teenagers stayed close to Michelle, who carried a fire axe with surprising confidence. Once we're underground, we stay together, Rachel instructed. No wandering, no hesitation. The infected down there have been trapped for years. They're hungry. Olivia led them down the frozen escalator into darkness. Flashlight beams cut through the gloom, revealing a station frozen in time. A train sat motionless on the tracks, its doors open like a mouth caught mid-scream. Posters advertising forgotten products peeled from walls. The air smelled of rot and stagnant water. Movement in the train car. Vincent raised his rifle as a zombie lurched into view. It had once been a commuter, still wearing business attire now hanging in tatters. The creature's eyes were milky white, its movements jerky and uncoordinated. A single shot echoed through the station. The zombie fell. More will come from that noise, Olivia warned. We need to move fast. She guided them onto the tracks, leading them into the tunnel proper. The darkness pressed close, broken only by their lights. Water dripped from somewhere above, a steady rhythm that measured their progress. Olivia navigated from memory and schematics both. 200 meters ahead, there's a maintenance junction. We take the service ladder down 1 level. That puts us on the utility access route that runs parallel to the main tunnels. They moved in tight formation, weapons ready. The tunnel amplified every sound, turning footsteps into thunder. Somewhere in the distance, answering moans echoed back. The maintenance junction appeared exactly where Olivia predicted. The ladder descended into deeper darkness, and one by one they climbed down. The lower tunnel was narrower, more confined, but also more secure. How far to the bunker? Patricia asked, her voice steady despite obvious fear. 3 miles through these tunnels, Thomas answered. But the entrance is the tricky part. We need to access it from the federal building's sub-basement. Jacob, still limping but determined, spoke up. What if the entrance is blocked? Or compromised? Then we find another way in, Olivia said simply. Buildings always have multiple access points. You just need to know where to look. They pressed forward through the utility tunnel. The walls here were lined with pipes and cables, the infrastructure that had once powered a thriving city. Now they were monuments to abandonment. About an hour into the journey, they encountered their first serious obstacle. The tunnel ahead was flooded, dark water stretching into shadow. Olivia waded in cautiously, testing the depth. The water reached her waist, cold and foul-smelling. There's no way around, she reported. We go through or we turn back. No one suggested turning back. They moved through the water in single file, weapons held high. The cold seeped through clothing, stealing warmth and strength. One of the teenagers whimpered quietly, and Michelle offered soft reassurance. Something brushed against Olivia's leg beneath the water. She froze, signaling for silence. The others stopped, tense and waiting. Beneath the surface, movement swirled. Not zombies, but rats, massive and diseased, fleeing from the disturbance. They continued forward, emerging finally onto dry ground. Everyone was soaked and shivering, but they had crossed the flooded section. 1/2 mile more, Olivia announced, checking their position against the schematics. Then we ascend into the federal building's foundation. The tunnel began to slope upward. The air grew slightly fresher, suggesting ventilation shafts somewhere above. Olivia felt cautious optimism. They were close now. Then Vincent's voice crackled through the darkness. We've got movement ahead. Lots of it? Olivia hurried forward to the scout position. Her flashlight revealed a nightmare. The tunnel widened into a large chamber, some kind of underground junction point. And filling that chamber were zombies. Dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, packed into the space in a writhing mass. They had congregated here, drawn by sound or instinct, trapped by their own numbers. We can't go through that, Emma whispered. Rachel studied the situation with tactical precision. We need a distraction, something to draw them away from our path. Thomas looked at his tablet frantically. There's an emergency alarm system. If I can access the electrical panel, I might be able to trigger it in a different section. The sound should draw them off. Where's the panel? Olivia asked. Back the way we came. About 200 meters. Rachel made the decision quickly. Vincent, take 2 people and go with Thomas. Trigger the alarm and get back here fast. The rest of us prepare to move the moment they clear out. Vincent nodded and selected his team. They disappeared back into the tunnel, leaving the main group watching the zombie horde. Minutes stretched like hours. Olivia counted heartbeats, watching the infected creatures shuffle aimlessly. So many of them, so close. One wrong sound, and they would swarm. A distant alarm began to wail, electronic and piercing. The effect was immediate. The zombies turned as one, drawn toward the sound like moths to flame. They moved with surprising speed, flooding back through the tunnel in a grotesque tide. Now, Rachel commanded. They ran through the chamber, crossing the space where hundreds of infected had stood moments before. Olivia led them to a service stairwell she had identified on the schematics, a narrow shaft rising through concrete. Vincent's team rejoined them as they began climbing. The alarm still wailed somewhere below, keeping the zombies occupied. They ascended through maintenance levels, past old storage rooms and forgotten offices. Finally, Olivia pushed open a door, marked with faded government seals. The federal building's sub-basement. They emerged into a vast space filled with filing systems and old equipment. Emergency lights still functioned here, painting everything in dim red. And at the far end, exactly where Thomas's schematics indicated, stood a heavy vault door marked with hazard symbols. Thomas rushed forward, pulling up the access codes on his tablet. His fingers trembled as he input the sequence into a keypad that still glowed with power. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep mechanical groan, the vault door began to open. Light spilled from within. Clean, white electric light. The hum of generators and air filtration systems reached their ears. The bunker was active, powered, and waiting. They entered in awed silence. The facility stretched before them, an underground city, preserved and ready. Living quarters lined corridors. A medical bay gleamed with equipment. Storage rooms held supplies that would last years. Everything Thomas had promised was real. Patricia began to cry quietly. Michelle hugged her teenagers close. Vincent lowered his weapon, shoulders sagging with relief. Emma found Olivia standing in the corridor, staring at the intact facility with wonder. "You got us here," Emma said softly. "We got us here," Olivia corrected. "Every single one of us." Rachel appeared, already thinking tactically. "We need to secure the entrance, set up a proper watch rotation, and start taking inventory. This place can hold more people. If we're careful, we can bring in other survivors." "One step at a time," Olivia suggested. "First, we make sure we can actually survive here." The group dispersed to explore their new home. Thomas obsessively checked systems, ensuring everything functioned properly. Vincent began security protocols. Patricia and Michelle organized the living spaces. That evening, they gathered in what had been designed as a common area. 14 people who had survived the end of the world, who had fought through darkness and danger to reach this moment. Emma stood before them, her medical kit finally set aside. "We lost everything up there. Families, friends, the world we knew. But we found something too. Each other. This bunker is more than shelter," Rachel added. "It's a foundation. We can build something here. Something that lasts." Olivia looked around at the faces illuminated by steady electric light. Each person carried scars, visible and hidden. Each had stories of loss and survival. But here, in this preserved piece of the old world, they had a chance to create something new. A child's voice broke the thoughtful silence. One of the teenagers, barely 16, spoke up. "Do you think others will come? Other survivors?" "Yes," Olivia answered with certainty. "And we'll be here to help them when they do." In the weeks that followed, they transformed the bunker into a true sanctuary. They established routines, assigned responsibilities, and began to function as a community rather than desperate refugees. Thomas got the long-range communications working, and they began broadcasting their own messages of hope into the ruined world above. More survivors found them. Some came alone, others in small groups. The bunker's population grew slowly but steadily. Each new arrival brought skills, stories, and renewed purpose. Emma established a proper medical facility. Rachel trained a security force. Olivia began planning expansions and improvements to their infrastructure. Patricia started teaching classes, preserving knowledge for a future that suddenly seemed possible again. 3 months after their arrival, Olivia stood at the bunker entrance, watching new survivors emerge from the tunnels they had once navigated in desperation. A family this time, parents and 2 young children, exhausted but alive. Rachel joined her. "Every person we save is a victory. Every day we survive is a victory," Olivia replied. Above them, the world remained broken and dangerous. Zombies still roamed dead cities. The Reavers and other threats continued to exist. Winter would bring new challenges. But here, deep beneath the ruins, humanity had found its footing again. Not in dominance or conquest, but in community and hope. They had learned that survival alone was not enough. They needed purpose, connection, and the belief that tomorrow could be better than today. Emma appeared with the family, guiding them toward medical evaluation. She caught Olivia's eye and smiled, a genuine expression of hope. The world had ended in silence, but it was being reborn in the voices of those who refused to surrender, who fought not just for survival, but for the chance to remain human in an inhuman world. And in a bunker beneath a dead city, that chance was enough.